What is up, friends? Hi, good morning. Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about something that none of us does particularly well. Therefore, we don't do a really good job of teaching the young women in our lives how to do it. Yet, it's the number one predictor of our success in life. So, before I get started, that's why this is a really important topic. Before I get started, I want to share this video with my group, Confident Moms Raising Confident Daughters. And then we are going to talk about the number one, let's see, share, here we go. Share in a group. Okay. So, the number one predictor of success in life is our ability to manage our emotions and have social skills, right? You can have all the beauty, talent, smarts, money in the world. And if you can't manage your emotions, and if you can't deal with people, and if you can't tolerate differences and have compassion and vulnerability and empathy and all of that, then all that stuff that you've got kind of isn't useful, right? If you're not able to handle rejection and failure and embarrassment and sadness, right, which makes up 50%, sometimes more than 50% of our lives, if you're not able to do that, then that's why we see some celebrities kind of crash and burn, or even people that we know in our real lives, even people here locally that on paper seems as though they have it all, right? Seems as though they've got everything going for them, and yet they're not happy, or they're not able to, really function in life. And this is why, because they haven't learned the skill of managing their emotion. Now, remember, so the number one predictor of success in life is the ability to manage your emotions. The number one way that kids learn is through imitation. So as we talk about this in this video, I just encourage you to think about how well do you do these things? How practiced are you in managing your emotions? I know that when I talk about this topic, I feel very called out because this is something that I have to stay in practice. And I don't always remember to do that, particularly raising teens. It's a very emotional time. Their bodies are changing, hormones are raging. They're not really understanding why their moods are swinging the way they are. We lose patience. We look at things from a very, from an older point of view, like, this isn't a big deal. What's your problem? Like, right? And so all of that means that maybe there are opportunities that are lost when it comes to teaching our girls how to work through their emotions. So I'm going to use the word manage emotions, and I think that that's really when I think of when I think of you managing something, I think of you getting something under control so that it doesn't spin out of control. And in fact, that is what I mean when I talk about managing your emotions. But I think sometimes we can think that managing emotions means to kind of quiet them or resist them or avoid them, right? And that's not what I'm talking about at all. Actually, to manage an emotion, you have to allow it. And I think that's the key piece here is when our girls come home from school or from practice, when our kids come home, when our spouse comes, whatever. This isn't just, a lot of the work that I talk about really isn't just for girls and teens. That's just kind of that's the backdrop that I use. But really, this is universal work. So when we have someone in our life who comes to us and they are dealing with something and they are feeling sad, frustrated, confused, lonely, stressed, our first reaction, if we love them, is to whisk them out of that emotion, to try and fix it, to avoid it, to distract from it, right? Let's go do this. Let's go buy this. Let's call these other friends. And for sure, that's, I guess, part of it. But I think the thing that we miss is just allowing ourselves to feel bad. Because I think that's why we see such a spike in anxiety and depression. And it's this coming from this misunderstanding that we're supposed to feel bad. When something bad happens, when we're disappointed, when we fail, when we're rejected, when we don't make a team, when our friends are leaving us out, that feels bad. And it makes total sense to feel disappointment, okay? So I think one of the biggest mistakes we make as moms is because we don't want to see someone we love in pain, and because we make it so much about us. Well, if I'm a good mom, then she wouldn't struggle with this. If I love her, then I'll take care of this. And that's what we talked about in yesterday's video, right? Is holding that space, taking a step back, and allowing people in our lives to have the experiences that they're meant to have. That's the first step. The second step is to guide them in processing through the emotions. So you have to allow it, and we have to own it, right? That's the other thing. When I say, when you get a failing grade, when you don't make a team, when your coach yells at you, when you're left out, when you don't get asked to prom by a boy or whatever it is, a promposal. What I mean by that is, the first thing that you have to understand is it's not those things that are causing her or you to feel sad. That's key. We think that we go out into the world, things happen, and then we feel a certain way. We go out into the world, things happen, and then it's what the meaning that we give to those things and the people around us. What we make those things mean about us that causes us to feel a certain way, right? That's why you can have a girl who doesn't get a promposal. She's like, whatevs. And then you have a girl who doesn't get asked to prom, and it's a big deal, right? She sinks into feeling depressed or upset about it. So we know that it all comes back to our thinking. So I guess I need to back up here and say that it's so important. There's really two pieces to my work, two foundations, two cornerstones. One is understanding that any emotion we feel comes from our thinking, and only our thinking. It doesn't come from the people who have done us wrong or from failure. It's what we make that failure mean about us, right? It's what we make the actions of others mean about us. And our thoughts are always optional. They're always up for grabs. It really all comes down to what you decide and what you choose to make things mean about you, right? And then from there, that's how you feel. That's what causes you, that those thoughts literally release chemicals in your brain that create feelings in your body. So that can be positive emotions like excitement, joy, connection, happy, I guess, to use a very broad term. Or we can feel anxious, fear, worry, stress, overwhelm, which is what all of us tend to live in because our brain is wired to go to the negative first. This is all this clicking and making sense. Okay, so now that we know that our emotions always come from what we think, and let's say we're thinking some things about ourselves when, let's say, your daughter comes home and she finds out that plans have been made and she's not been included, or she looks on her phone and sees all these pictures and she wasn't part of it, okay? Then she makes that mean something about herself, usually negative, right? That she's not good enough, or that she doesn't have good friends, or that she's left out again. And at that point, she begins to feel a feeling. And it's typically a feeling that she doesn't like to feel, that it doesn't feel good. But again, our first response as the people who love them is to try and whisk her out of that feeling state. And I'm suggesting that in order to build those emotional skills that we need to succeed in life, because bad stuff is always going to happen, we have to learn how to process that emotion, to sit in it for a minute. And it's really interesting because we will work so hard at avoiding a negative emotion. We'll, kind of run from it, avoid it, push it aside, push it down. We'll, binge Netflix. We'll binge Oreo cookies. We'll go shop for something. We'll go and talk about somebody behind their back to make us feel better for like a minute, right? We'll do all of those things. And yet, if we sit with the upsetting emotion, with the negative emotion, it only takes about 90 seconds for that emotion to process through our body if we follow the steps that I'm getting ready to outline. And that is, one, we have to name the emotion. We have to say, I feel really sad right now. I feel embarrassed. I feel like a failure. Okay? And then we have to take even more time to figure out, where do we physically feel that in our body? How does it show up? How does it present itself? Do we clench our jaw? Are our neck and shoulders tense? Do we, kind of notice our fists? Do we have an upset tummy? Is our heart beating? Does our face flush? Like, when you observe yourself in an emotion, your brain does something really interesting. It stops producing the chemical that courses throughout your body that makes you feel that way. So you can't be thinking, I'm feeling sad and my heart hurts, and your brain's still producing that chemical. It doesn't mean you're going to stop hurting and you're going to stop being sad. It just means that you're able to kind of marinate in it a little bit. And that is huge, to be able to feel a feeling and know that it's okay, that you can survive it. You're not going to die. No one's hurt by it, right? And then once you take a few minutes to identify how you're feeling and where you're feeling it in your body, and repeat to yourself, I'm feeling sad. This is sad. Then you can think, what is the thought that I'm thinking that's causing me to feel this way? Those are really the only steps you need. You don't need to try and think a new thought. You don't need to try and change the situation. You don't need to try and come out of that negative emotion really quickly. You just need to observe it and be aware of it. Awareness and observation is like 90% of this work. And here's the beauty. When you observe it, when you're aware of it, and when you work through it, you cannot stay stuck in it. You cannot stay in a place of despair and sadness and worry when you own it, right? We cannot change what we do not own, Maya Angelou said. Love that quote, live by it every day. So we have to first take responsibility. Okay, I'm feeling this way because I'm making it mean that I'm not good enough. And then we can eventually get to where we question that thought. Is that really true? Is it really true that I don't have any friends? Is it really true that I'm not fun? Right? Then we can kind of work on that line of thinking. But first we have to be willing to sit in a negative emotion. And then we can truly understand that we're not supposed to be happy all the time. That feeling a negative emotion is very much part of the human experience. It is not something that we should resist or avoid, because it means that we're alive. It means that we're human. It means that we're putting ourselves out there. It means that we're trying. It means that we're stretching ourselves out of our comfort zone, which is the very reason that we are put here on this earth, right? We were not plunked here to live easy lives and to be comfortable and for everything to happen and come very easily to us. As parents, that is what we want for our children, right? And we mean well. But if they live that existence, then eventually when they get out of your home, when they go off to college, when they get in their first serious relationship, holy moly, things will start to unravel quickly because they won't have the skill, the coping skill of dealing with their emotions. And heaven forbid they turn to, alcohol, drugs, sex, eating, all of the things that any of the things that we're seeing, young people do because they've lived these lives where we've kind of helicoptered and tried to fix everything and gone down the path ahead of them, and fixed everything so that they don't have to trip over anything, right? Again, this is something that we all do. And I'm suggesting that maybe we reconsider. And the next time our daughter is dealing with something or struggling with something or upset, we help her through it. We sit through it with her and we take her through some of these steps. Now, I am going to tell you that the phones present a different layer to this because, it's different to go out and have something happen in a real life experience and process through it versus having it on a phone that's just right there that you're just scrolling through and you're sinking deeper and deeper into. You don't even know that you're feeling bad until way after you're feeling bad. So that's why it's so important to really balance that phone time with exercise, with creativity, with real life connections, right? And we'll talk about that. I think that's going to be next week's theme is social media because there's a lot there and there's a lot we got to talk about. So, okay, so far we talked about why mean girls and mean girl behavior is important, why we need it, right? That contrast. Can't know how to be nice if we don't experience mean girl behavior. We talked yesterday, in yesterday's video, we talked about how you can really show up for your daughter in that situation, and that is really just showing up and holding the space for her and allowing her to have her own experience and not bring yourself into it. And today we're kind of continuing that conversation by saying, don't bring yourself into it by trying to whisk her out of discomfort. And we talked about how to actually have discomfort, and you can try it too. Listen, a lot of times when I'm in the car and I'm driving from point A to point B and I've got a little while, I will actually practice this by putting myself back in a situation where I started feeling shame or stress or anger or frustration. And I'll kind of start thinking those thoughts and get myself worked up so that I can practice working through it. It's amazing. The strategies that I offer and that I teach and that have been taught to me are actually very simple. Where we make it difficult and where it becomes difficult is because we forget. And we forget that we have them available to us and that the key is just to practice. Stay in the practice of all of this and you will become unstuck. You will see things begin to change almost immediately. All right, back again tomorrow. Love spending this time with you guys. I hope this is helping. I would love it if you would drop an emoji if you're watching this live, or drop an emoji if you watch it as a replay, just to let me know that you're seeing this, and shoot me a private message or drop a comment below and let me know if some of this is helping. And I want to hear from you guys. If you have tools that you use, if you have ways that you've kind of retrained your brain to deal with some of this stuff that we talk about, I want to hear it. I want to hear from you guys. Okay, have a great week and I'll see you soon. Toodles.